Now let us revise. This is the discourse on the simile of the cloth. And it is about the 16 upekalesas. We're going to explore the definition, how an individual perceives them internally, and how they might manifest in actions. These are often considered negative emotions or mental states that obscure clarity, contribute to suffering in various spiritual and psychological frameworks. There are 16 of them. 1, covetousness and immoral greed. Definition: an excessive desire for what belongs to other, often accompanied by a sense of lack of dissatisfaction with one's own possession or circumstances. Immoral greed adds the element of unethical or harmful means to acquire these desires. The individual perception, internal feeling, a persistent yearning, a feeling of not enough, a focus on what others have, envy, and sometimes a sense of entitlement to what isn't theirs. There can be a constant mental comparison and a feeling of being deprived. Their thoughts, preoccupation with acquiring more, fantasies of possessing what others have, justification for wanting what isn't theirs, and potentially negative judgments about those who have what they desire. Their actions, seeking to acquire others' possessions through unfair and dishonest means, theft, fraud, exploiting others for personal gain, being overly materialistic and constantly striving for more possessions, even at the expense of relationship or ethical principle, hoarding resources, and being unwilling to share. Number 2, ill will. The definition: a desire for harm or suffering to befall others. It is a negative orientation towards someone or something, wishing them unwell. The individual perception, internal feeling, resentment, animosity, bitterness, hatred. A general unpleasant feeling when thinking about the target of ill will. Their thoughts, fantasies of other person's misfortune, negative judgments, blaming, and the desire for retribution. Their action, spreading rumors or gossip to damage someone's reputation, sabotaging someone's efforts or well-being, engaging in verbal attacks or aggressive behavior, withholding help or support out of spite. Number 3, anger. Definition: a strong feeling of displeasure and hostility, often triggered by perceived injustice, offense, or frustration. Individual perception, internal feeling: a surge of heat, tension, and body, racing heart, agitation, irritability, and strong urge to react. Their thoughts, blaming, accusation, and sense of being wrong, potentially violent or aggressive fantasies. Their actions, verbal outbursts, yelling, aggressive communication, physical aggression or violence, destructive behavior towards objects or property, holding grudges and seeking revenge. Number 4, acrimony. Definition: bitterness and sharpness of temper or speech. Harshness. It is more persistent, ingrained form of negativity than fleeting anger. Individual perception, internal feeling: a constant undercurrent of resentment, cynicism, and predisposition to interpret situation negatively. Interactions feel strained and unpleasant. Their thoughts, negative interpretation of others' motives, dwelling on past grievances, and general feeling of being in conflict. Their actions, using sharp, biting, or sarcastic language, creating tension and conflict in relationship, being uncooperative, difficult to work with, holding on to past hurts or bringing them up repeatedly. Number 5, disdain. Definition: a feeling of contempt or scorn regarding someone or something as unworthy or inferior. Individual perception, internal feeling: a sense of superiority, a looking down on others, a lack of respect, a feeling of being above or separated from them. Their thoughts, negative judgment about others' ability, intelligence, or worth, often without genuine understanding. Their actions, ignoring or dismissing others' opinions or contribution, speaking to others in a condescending or patronizing manner, avoiding association with those deemed inferior, subtlety or overtly belittling others. Number 6, contempt. Definition: a feeling that a person or a thing is worthless or beneath considerations. Scorn. It is a strong, more active form of disdain, often involving disgust. Individual perception, internal feeling: a mix of disdain and revulsion, a strong sense of other person's worthlessness, a desire to distance oneself. Their thoughts, harsh and demeaning judgment, seeing the other person as fundamentally flawed or repulsive. Their actions, openly mocking or ridiculing others, using disrespectful, insulting language, threatening others as they insignificant or invisible, nonverbal clues as disgust, eye rolling, and sneering. Number 7, jealousy. Definition: the feeling of envy and resentment towards someone because their possession, qualities, or achievements. It often involves a fear of losing something one already has or disdains, one already has or desires. Individual perception, internal feeling: insecurity, envy, resentment, bitterness, a sense of threat or inadequacy when comparing oneself to others. Their thoughts: preoccupation with what others have, negative comparison, suspicion of others' motives, the desire to diminish the other person's success. Their actions: gossiping or spreading negative rumors about the person they are jealous of, trying to undermine the other person's achievements, being overly critical or finding fault with other persons, withholding praise or support. Number 8, stinginess. Definition: unwilling to give or spend ungenerously. It is clinging to resources, a reluctance to share. Individual perception, internal feeling: anxiety about scarcity, a strong desire to hold on to possession, a discomfort at the thought of giving anything away. Thoughts: their thoughts: justification for not giving, a focus on potential loss, and belief that one's resources are limited. Their actions: avoiding situations that they might be expected to spend or give, being excessively frugal, even when it causes inconvenience or hardship for themselves or others, being unwilling to help others financially or with resources. Number 9, deceit. Definition: the act of intentionally mislead or misrepresenting the truth. Individual perception, internal feeling: a sense of unease or guilt, though this may be suppressed, a need to maintain the lie, the potentiality, a feeling potentially a feeling of power or manipulation. Their thoughts: planning and constructing the lie, anticipating potential consequences, and rationalizing the deception. Their actions: lying, fabricating stories, withholding information, presenting a false image or impression or a false narrative, manipulating situations or people for their personal gain. Number 10, divisiveness. Definition: showing a skillful use of underhanded tactic to achieve goals, cunning and willingly. It implies a more strategic, manipulative form of deceit. Their individual perception, internal feeling: a sense of cleverness or shrewdness, a detached or strategic mindset, the potentially a lack of empathy for those being manipulated. Their thoughts: planning intricate schemes, anticipating others' reactions, exploiting vulnerabilities. Their actions: using indirect, subtle methods to achieve their aim, playing people against each other, creating confusion or misdirection. Number 11, obstinacy. Definition: stubbornly refusing to change one opinion on the course of act despite attempt to persuade one to do so. Individual perception, internal feeling: a strong conviction in their own view, resistance to external influence, potentially a feeling of being right or misunderstood. Their thoughts: justifying their position, dismissing alternative viewpoints, resisting any suggestion of being wrong. Their actions: refusing to listen to or consider others' perspective, digging their heels in, refusing to compromise, ignoring evidence and logical arguments. Number 12, aggressions. Definition: hostile or violent behavior, attitude towards another, readiness to attack and confront. Individual perception, internal feeling: irritability, frustration, a buildup of tension, and a strong urge to lash out or to dominate. Their thoughts: blaming others, feeling threatened, fantasizing about forceful or violent situation. Their action: physical violence, threats, and intimidation, verbal attacks, insult, hostile communication, dominating or controlling behavior. Number 13, conceit. Definition: excessive pride in oneself. Individual perception, internal feeling: a sense of superiority, self-satisfaction, an inflated view of one's own ability or worth. Their thoughts: constant self-praise, downplaying others' achievements, and the belief in one's own exceptionalization. Their actions: bragging and boasting about oneself, seeking constant admiration and validation, dismissing or belittling others' accomplishments. Number 14, arrogance. Definition: an exaggerated sense of one's own importance or abilities. Haughtiness. It often involves a lack of consideration for others, individual perception, internal feeling. A strong sense of entitlement, a belief in one's inherent superiority, a lack of empathy for others, their thoughts, disregarding others' opinions, feelings, and rules that don't apply to them, and condescending attitude, their action, speaking and acting as if they are better than others, ignoring or dismissing others' needs and feelings, being condescending and patronizing. Number 15, vanity, definition, excessive pride in admiration of one's own appearance, individual perception, internal feeling, a strong focus on physical appearance, a need for external validation or beauty, a pleasure derived from being admired, their thoughts, constant self-evaluation based on appearance, preoccupation of looking good, comparison with others' looks, their action, spending excessive time and effort grooming an appearance, seeking attention and accomplishment about their looks, being overly concerned in how others perceive their appearance. And number 16, apamata, negligence, definition, failure to take proper care in doing something, individual perception, internal feeling, a lack of concern or motivation, procrastination, forgetfulness, or a sense of being overwhelmed, their thoughts, underestimating the importance of tasks, rationalizing inaction, or simply not paying attention, their action, failing to fulfill responsibility or obligation, making careless mistakes due to lack of attention, ignoring warning signs or potential problems. Understanding these mental defilements, these kalesas, 16 of them, how they feel, how they manifest in thought, how they drive action, is critical steps in personal growth in Theravada Buddhism, ethical development. By recognizing these patterns within ourselves, we can begin to address them and cultivate more positive kusala mental states, wholesome mental states. This is the chapter on the simile of the cloth. You can find this in sutracentral.net. The course of the Discourse on the simile of the cloth.